संकीर्तन की जय, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, जय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि गौर। Hare Krishna, our Lord, the assembled devotees, thank you for joining. I hope my audio is clear. I hope the connection is good.
Very good.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. So, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Vaishnava and Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for joining. So last week, we were reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, last chapter, Beyond the Lower East Side. As the title suggests, things were expanding and Srila Prabhupada was moving forward. He had no plans to just sit and talk about Krishna within just in New York City, inside the Lower East Side, 22nd Avenue, 22nd 6th Avenue, the shop. He had dreamt of building a temple. He was looking forward to it. He was looking for uh, matching buildings that could possibly turn into temple. He was not just thinking of the expansion of that particular, the first temple of ISKCON, but also further. So what we saw was a sudden shift from Srimad Bhagavatam to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was the current new book that Srila Prabhupada was reading from. Of course, the translation wasn't done then. Srila Prabhupada wanted to quickly finish the translation and commentary on Bhagavad Gita as it is, and that's what his focus was. But he introduced Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and asked his disciples to be patient with him. It's a revolutionary book that was being opened and discussed. So it would be a little difficult to understand. So he requested his disciples to be patient and keep at it. So every day morning, this was the reading. Instead of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada began reading shlokas in Bengali. And did you put Tulsi? And Srila Prabhupada would read from the books, he would translate and speak. This time, for the first time, Srila Prabhupada was speaking or reading and translating the story of Sanatana Goswami, how he and his brother, Rupa Goswami, and how they became intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya. Who they were, what they were doing, how they were working under the Nawab, and how Sanatan was was put into jail because he was no more interested in doing any minister work. And every day, Srila Prabhupada would stop on a cliffhanger always. He would just stop right looking at the time, and sometimes he would say, "Oh, we have gone beyond the time limit, so we are beyond the time limit, so we are closing. We'll see tomorrow. Will Sanatan reach? Will Sanatan escape from the jail?" Such things were being discussed, and everyone was quite intrigued because whoever listened to the class, Kirtanananda, Hayagriva, they were very intrigued of what to know what was happening, what would happen to Sanatan Goswami. The next day again the Chaitanya Charitamrita would continue, And where we stopped was, yeah, where we stopped was this was going on so regularly that the very most intimate, close disciples like Jadurani Mataji, Rupanuga, Damodar, Umapati, Hayagriva, Satswarupa, Gargamani, Achyutananda, Brahmananda, Kirtanananda, they were just, their lives began revolving around Srila Prabhupada and prasadam and kirtan, going and coming from the storefront. This was what their lives completely transformed into. And Gargamani and Ramananda, they were almost ready. They gave up their apartments in this. They moved into the storefront. Srila Prabhupada said them to keep their jobs because that way they can use that money to serve the Lord and serve their spiritual master. And there was this letter that he received from someone who invited him to San Francisco. Who was that someone? If someone can, if any of the devotees present here can try to recollect, that would be great. He received a letter, and that letter was an invitation to San Francisco. Can anyone
Rameswar
remember?
Prabhu, you guess. Someone is asking.
Prabhu knows the answer.
I
Yes.
was thinking it was good if you did not ask any questions this time. And then you started with
Ramesh Prabhu is just smiling. He knows, but he's just smiling.
Mukunda Goswami Prabhu.
Mukunda Prabhu,
Ah,
yes. So
I think by heart,
this
upside
was
down.
the life. Yes, Prabhu. This was the life that these devotees have, begin living, surrounded by Srila Prabhupada's activities and surrounding themselves with always being connected to Srila Prabhupada. And yeah, I think that's where we stopped. Yes, Hare Krishna. So,
Yes.
yes,
Ah,
yes. So they felt very
ah,
safe in Srila Prabhupada's association because Srila Prabhupada was there and everything was revolving. They would do their chanting. Srila Prabhupada would
okay.
sit and do the first round together, and the rest they were
I should
obliged to
reach
do.
by 11 o'clock. Yeah.
Hare
The
Krishna,
airport
if
and
you
bus
can
se
mute
matane ko
yourself, that would be nice. Prabhu, can you mute everyone else? Thank you. So, um, all their struggles or their even their efforts in keeping up their vows of following four regulative principles, all that was easy because Srila Prabhupada was there. They were able to strictly follow everything. They gave their full attention to those intimate teachings, and Krishna consciousness was active, and they were able to practice because of Srila Prabhupada. And they knew that as long as he was there, they would be fine. And they could keep and come and see him. Krishna consciousness was a sure thing as long as he was there. This is where we stop. So before we continue, we can go ahead and recite the pranam mantras. Shri ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. मम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुं मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः मुखं करोति वाक्शालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं श्रीचैतन्यमीश्वरं परमानन्दमाधवं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सागुणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सागरललिता श्रीशाकं हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गे श्री राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. We should be here. This is where we are. I hope you can see the screen. We shall continue reading. So where we stopped?
Today you will show video, Mataji. Today you will show video.
Nothing specifically, Prabhu, because we saw where Srila Prabhupada picked out the red book, but it was a blue book there, and Chaitanya Charitamrita was being read. That's where we stopped. He showed us last.
Correct.
Yes. So, yeah. Tune in tomorrow to know what happens to Sanatan. That's how they would tell. And everybody knows the story, how it goes. There were thieves in an inn. Sanatan was asking assistance to pass over this very dangerous jungle mountain. The hotel keeper was willing to kill him because he knew this Sanatan was carrying gold coins. So before even they could think of attempting to murder Sanatan Goswami, he paid them and they showed him the way to pass by. So Swamiji looked at his watch. Yes, we are way big ahead of this. Okay. Seated on the old rug, they looked up at him, waiting for him to begin the next installment. Prabhupada cleared his throat and glanced down at Brahmananda, who sat beside the silently running tape recorder. So by then, they began recording his birth. Satswarupa entered the date in his notebook. Prabhupada began reading the Bengali verses and paraphrased. Sanatan took the 7 gold coins from his servant and gave them to the hotel keeper. You have 8 coins, the astrologer said. There was this crooked astrologer also. Sanatan went back and found that his servant was retaining another gold coin. Why do you carry this death knell on the road? Sanatan asked. You are too attached to money. And he took the gold piece from his servant and told him to return home. Sanatan then brought the gold coin to the hotel keeper, but the hotel keeper, who admitted that he had intended to kill Sanatan for his money, now said, "You're a good man and you may keep your money." But Sanatan refused. Then the hotel keeper provided Sanatan with 4 assistants. They helped Sanatan through the jungle and then left him alone. That is how Sanatan Goswami covered that area. At every point he was a danger. Now, the jungle, we had people behind him trying to find him, and the threat of the Nawab, and here someone planning to kill him because he had money, which he didn't get. Free from his nuisance servants and from the dacoits, Sanatan felt liberated as he passed along the road alone. As soon he came upon his brother-in-law, who was traveling along the same road. His brother-in-law was a wealthy man carrying a great deal of money to buy horses. Please stay with me for at least a few days. Sanathan's brother-in-law said, "It's really bad how you look." The brother-in-law knew that Sanatan was going to spiritual life, but he requested that he improve his dress by accepting a valuable blanket from him. Sanatan took the blanket and continued on his way. At last, Sanatan reached Banaras and he went straight to the home of Chandrasekhara, where Lord Chaitanya was staying, and waited outside the door. Lord Chaitanya knew Sanatan had arrived and he requested Chandrasekhara to go to the door and ask the devotee who was waiting there to come in. Please stay with me. Yes. Chandrasekhara went out but only saw the wretched-looking Sanatana, whom he took to be a half-mad Muhammadan fakir. Chandrasekhara returned to Lord Chaitanya and explained that there was no devotee outside. Was there anyone at all? The Lord asked. Yes, said Chandrasekhara, some wretched fakir. Then Lord Chaitanya went to the door and embraced Sanatana. The Lord cried tears of ecstasy, for he had at last found a devotee whom he knew was worthy to receive his entire teaching. And Sanatan cried tears of joy that his life's ambition was being fulfilled. But because he was dirty from his traveling and not worthy, he asked the Lord not to touch him. The Lord replied, "It is I who benefit from touching you. Whoever touches a true devotee is blessed." Prabhupada closed the book, ending another morning session. One of Prabhupada's main concerns was to finish and publish as soon as possible his translation and commentary of Bhagavad Gita. And one day, something happened that enabled him to increase his work on the manuscript. Unexpectedly, a boy named Neil arrived. He was a student from Antioch College on a special work study program, and he had the school's approval to work one term within the ashrama of Swami Bhaktivedanta, which he had heard about through the newspapers. Neil mentioned that he was a good typist, if that could be of any help to the Swami. Prabhupada considered this to be Krishna's blessing. Immediately, he rented a dictaphone and began dictating tapes. Hayagriva donated his electrical typewriter, and Neil set up his work area in Swamiji's front room and began typing 8 hours a day. This inspired Prabhupada and obliged him to produce more. He worked quickly, sometimes day and night, on his Bhagavad Gita as it is. He had founded ISKCON 5 months ago, yet in his classes he was still reading the Bhagavad Gita translation of Dr. Radhakrishnan. But when Bhagavad Gita as it is would be at last published, he told his disciples it would be of major importance for the Krishna consciousness movement. At last, there would be a bona fide edition of the Gita. Whatever Swamiji said or did, his disciples wanted to hear about it. Gradually, they had increased their faith and devotion to Swamiji, whom they accepted as God's representative, and they took his actions and words to be absolute. After one of the disciples had been alone with him, the others would gather around and find out every detail of what had happened. It was Krishna consciousness. Jadurani was especially bilious in relating what Swamiji had said or done. One day, Prabhupada had stepped on a tack that Jadurani had dropped on the floor. And although she knew it was a serious offense to her spiritual master, the major importance of the event seemed to be how Prabhupada had displayed his transcendental consciousness. He silently and emotionlessly reached down and pulled the tack from his foot without so much as a cry. And once, when she was fixing a painting over his head behind the desk, she accidentally stepped on his seating mat. "Is that an offense?" she had asked. And Swamiji had replied, "No, for service you could even stand on my head." A tack would be those push pins. So it was what accidentally she dropped a pin. Mataji dropped a pin, and that's what Srila Prabhupada stamped on. He silently pulled it out. If there's a thorn that goes into our leg, or if it's even a mosquito that stings us, it causes us so much of irritation and pain. And they hear Srila Prabhupada emotionlessly and silently pulled the tack out of from his. Sometimes Brahmananda would say that Swamiji had told him something very intimate about Krishna consciousness in private. When he would tell what Swamiji had said, someone else would recall the same thing was in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada had said that the spiritual master is present in his instructions and that he had tried to put everything into those 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the devotees were finding this to be true. There was no secrets in Swamiji's family of devotees. Everyone knew that Umapati had left for a few days, disappointed with Swamiji's severe criticism of Buddhists, but had come back, and in a heavy, sincere exchange with Prabhupada, had decided to take to Krishna consciousness again. And everyone knew that Satsarupa had resigned from his job, and that when he went to tell Swamiji about it, Swamiji told him that he could not quit, but should go on earning money for Krishna and donating it to the society, that this would be his best service. And everyone knew that Swamiji wanted Gargamuni to cut his hair. Swamiji called it Gargamuni Shakespeare and locks. But that he would not do so. The year ended. Prabhupada was still working on his manuscript of Bhagavad Gita, still lecturing in the mornings from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings from Bhagavad Gita, and still talking of going to San Francisco. Then New Year's Eve came. The devotee suggested that since this was a holiday when people go, how to celebrate, maybe they should hold a Krishna conscious festival. Rupanuga, Prabhu says. So we had a big feast and a lot of people came. Although it wasn't as crowded as Sunday feast, we were all taking prasadam and Swamiji was sitting upon his dais and he was also taking prasadam. He was demanding that we eat lots of prasadam. And then he was saying, chant, chant. So we were eating and chanting Hare Krishna between bites. And he was insisting on more and more prasadam. I was amazed. He stayed with us and kept insisting that we eat so much. He stayed until around 11 o'clock and then he became drowsy and the party was over. This was the New York party, the New York's New Year Eve party. Morning after morning, the story of Sanatan Goswami unfolded from the pages of Swamiji's big book, which only he could read and explain. Lord Chaitanya told Sanatana that he would be very grateful that he should be very grateful that Krishna had been merciful to him, to which Sanatan replied, you say that Krishna is very merciful, but I don't know who Krishna is. You have saved me. Lord Chaitanya had many devotees in Banaras and he sent Sanatana to the home of one of his friends where he could get something to eat, take a bath, shave and dress in new clothing. Sanatana, however, refused the new clothing and he also refused to become dependent on one place for his meal. Now that he had entered the renounced order, he preferred to go begging his meals at a different place each day. Lord Chaitanya saw this, he was pleased. But Sanatan sensed that his valuable blanket did not please the Lord. So he traded the new blanket for an old one. This pleased Lord Chaitanya, who said, now you are completely renounced. Your last attachment is gone by the mercy of Krishna. Sanatan submitted himself at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and said, I have wasted my time in sense gratification. I am low born and I have low association. I have no qualification for spiritual life. I do not even know what is actually beneficial for me. People say that I'm learned, but I'm a fool, number one. Because although people say I'm learned and although I accept it, still I did not know who I am. Sanatana presented himself as a blank slate and he inquired from the Lord, who am I? Why am I in this material world? Why am I suffering? Prabhupada emphasized that this was the perfect way for a disciple to accept a spiritual master. After narrating the story of Sanatan joining Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada began lecturing on the Lord's teachings to Sanatan. Lord Chaitanya first explained that the living being is not the material body, but an eternal living soul within the body. Then for 2 months, Lord Chaitanya instructed Sanatana, revealing to him the deepest and most sublime philosophical truth of Vedic wisdom. He enlightened Sanatan regarding the soul and its relationship with Krishna, the nature of the material and spiritual worlds, the characteristics of a fully realized soul, and the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna and his unlimited forms, expansions, incarnations, and divine pastimes. He explained the superiority of Bhakti Yoga, of the path of Bhakti Yoga over the paths of philosophical speculation and yogic mysticism. And he revealed to Sanatan the esoteric knowledge of spiritual ecstasy experienced by those souls who have achieved pure love of God, for Krishna. These teachings of the Lord were like an ocean that overflooded the mind of Sanatana Goswami with its sweetness and grandeur. Lord Chaitanya had finished instructing Sanatana. He gave Sanatana the benediction that all those sublime teachings would be fully manifested within his heart, thus enabling him to compose transcendental literature. For 2 months, Lord Chaitanya had instructed Sanatana Goswami, and for 2 months, starting in mid-November of 1963, Srila Prabhupada narrated in over 50 lectures the Chaitanya Charitamrita's account of those teachings. Although each of his talks covered the subject matter of the verses, his lectures were never limited to his subject, nor were they prepared talks. So Prabhupada never prepared for lectures. Shall we continue? Hare Krishna. I've been reading for quite some time. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Right. Sometimes during the evening gatherings in his room, Swamiji would ask whether Mukunda was ready on the West Coast. For months, Prabhupada's going to the West Coast had been one of a number of alternatives. But then, during the first week of the new year, a letter arrived from Mukunda. He had rented a storefront in the heart of the Ashbury district on Frederick Street. We are busy converting it into a temple now, he wrote. And Prabhupada announced, I shall go immediately. All this while, though Srila Prabhupada received a letter from Mukunda, Prabhu way on long back. He would go, he would not go. Sometimes he would go, talk of going. Sometimes he would say, no, I'm not going. Nothing was completely fixed until this letter arrived from Mukunda. Srila Prabhupada finally said, I am leaving. Mukunda had told of a gathering of tribes in San Francisco's High Ashbury. Thousands of hippies were migrating from all over the country to the very neighborhood where Mukunda had rented the store. It was a youth renaissance, much bigger than what was going on in New York City. In a scheme to raise funds for the new temple, Mukunda was planning a mantra rock dance, and famous rock bands were going to appear. And Swami Bhaktivedanta and the chanting of Hare Krishna were to be the center of attraction. So in San Francisco, Mukunda Prabhu was sent with his wife, and they were seeing what could be done, because Srila Prabhupada had always had plans to expand. And Mukunda Prabhu was so amazing at figuring out what can be done. Similar thing, very similar, because the hippie movement was not just restricted to the New York City, it was all over America, mostly all over the West. The effect of which was transgressed into the different parts of the world from the West. And here, people were migrating to that hippie, hype, current sensation of a place, which is exactly where Mukunda Prabhu figured out how to rent a rent a storefront, similar to what Srila Prabhupada did. Very similar to what Srila Prabhupada did. And if you can remember how His Holiness Satswarup Das Goswami Maharaj was explaining in detail the importance of the location of the storefront that Srila Prabhupada had now taken up, right? And how it was relevant to the changing youth who were distracted and who were also turning the tides and not following the most traditional way of things that was happening. They were rebelling against the flow of the materialistic way of life. And that is exactly where Krishna put Srila Prabhupada to begin ISKCON, to begin with Krishna. Right? A very similar thing was happening in France. And that scene was much more bigger in magnitude comparing to New York, what was happening in New York. And here, Mukunda Prabhu was telling that he was interested. He was interested in getting a mantra, getting Srila Prabhupada to chant, and the devotees to chant Hare Krishna to a mantra rock dance. He was planning to get rock bands together. Although in his letter, Mukunda had enclosed a plane ticket, some of Swamiji's followers refused to accept that Swamiji would use it. Those who knew could not leave New York began to criticize the idea of Swamiji going to San Francisco. They didn't think that people out of the West Coast could take care of Swamiji properly. Swamiji appearing with rock musicians, those people out there didn't seem to have the proper respect. Anyway, there was no suitable temple there. There was no printing press, no Back to Godhead magazine. Why should Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji, leave New York to attend a function like that with strangers in California? How could he even leave them behind in New York? How could their spiritual life continue without him? Timidly, one or two dissenters indirectly expressed some of these feelings to Prabhupada, as if almost wishing to admonish him from thinking of leaving them, and even hinting that things would not go well either in San Francisco or New York if he departed. But they found Prabhupada quite confident and determined. He did not belong to New York, he belonged to Krishna. and he had to go wherever Krishna desired him to preach. Prabhupada showed a spirit of complete detachment, eager to travel and expand the chanting of Hare Krishna. Of course, this is the beginning of the ISKCON movement. The ISKCON movement is Srila Prabhupada's heart and soul. And here he was very boldly expressing and exhibiting how detachment works. Taking your whole heart and leaving it so that others can take care of it. And being detached that, oh, it's fine. It's time to move on. It's time to go ahead and do spread Krishna consciousness. And if that means that I have to move away, uh, you know, not keep myself attached to New York and the storefront, that's what it means. Prabhupada struggled for over a year without proper food, without proper residence, not even a proper visa. And here Srila Prabhupada was eager to travel and spread Krishna consciousness. Brahmananda, I think Brahmananda Prabhu would be the most expected person because he was constantly along with all the other disciples, but he was shocked. But he was shocked that he was going to leave. Hare Krishna?
Ceremony's twin brother.
Ah, yes, Prabhu. He was going to leave. I never thought that Krishna consciousness would go beyond the Lower East Side. What to speak of New York City? I thought that this was it and it would stay here eternally. In the last days of the second week of January, final plane reservations were made and the devotees began packing Swamiji's manuscripts away in trunks. Ranchor, a new devotee recruited from Tompkins Square Park, had collected enough money for a plane ticket. And the devotees decided that he should accompany Prabhupada as his personal assistant. Prabhupada explained that he would be gone only for a few weeks and that he wanted all the programs to go on in his absence. Now was the time that they were to get trained in how to take care of Srila Prabhupada's Hare Krishna movement or the ISKCON movement, the exact way that Prabhupada carried it forward and took care of the movement, conducted programs. He wanted nothing to change. He wanted to do it as such. That was the tricky part, to practice and to preach in Prabhupada's absence. And how heavy-hearted the devotees must have been, because while they're packing, most of them were in, most of the disciples were in denial, like Ramanand Prabhu is saying. They could not even believe that Prabhupada was leaving. And here they were packing his belongings, they're packing his manuscript into trunks. And this new devotee was collecting money. So imagine how heavy-hearted they were when they were, pulling out money from their purses and, giving it into the hands of Ranchor Prabhu. What was it for? To sponsor Srila Prabhupada's plane ticket to leave to San Francisco. He waited in his room while the boys arranged for a car to take him to the airport. The day was grey and cold and the steam hissed in the radiators. He would take only a suitcase, mostly clothes and some books. He checked the closet to see that his manuscripts were in order. Kirtanananda would take care of his things in his apartment. He sat down at his desk where for more than 6 months he had sat so many times working for hours at the typewriter preparing his Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and where he had sat talking to so many guests and to his followers. But today, he would not be talking with his friends or typing a manuscript, but waiting for a last few minutes alone before his departure. A whole new chapter begins. What is going to happen next? And this sort of uncertainty and not knowing what was going to happen in the future, we faced along with Srila Prabhupada when he had stepped onto Boston port. Right? What would happen next? And then, and also, even bigger question mark came when Srila Prabhupada decided to move to New York City from Butler, Pennsylvania. Where he would do, what would he do, where would he stay? Everything was in question. And here again it is happening. But Srila Prabhupada was confident. Krishna had arranged Mukunda Prabhu to be, linked in there, finding a new place. So it could not that of a big worry, because we know what's going to happen in one way, and we are also confident that Prabhupada would be taken care of and things would be absolutely fine because it is just the beginning of the forest fire. But still, it is scary, isn't it? This was his second winter in New York. He had launched a movement of Krishna consciousness. A few sincere boys and girls had joined. They were already well known on the Lower East Side, many notices in the newspaper, and it was only the beginning. He had left Vrindavan for this. At first, he had not been certain whether he would stay in America more than 2 months. In Butler, he had presented his books, but then in New York, he had seen how Dr. Mishra had developed things and how the Mayavadis had a big building. They were taking money and not even delivering the real message of the Gita. But the American people were looking, they were seeking. It had been a difficult year. His god brothers didn't been interested in helping. Although this is what here, Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted, and what Lord Chaitanya wanted. Because Lord Chaitanya wanted it, his blessings would come and it would happen. This was a nice case, 26 Second Avenue. He had started here. The boys would keep it up. Some of them were donating their salaries. It was a start. Prabhat looked at his watch. He put on his tweed winter coat and his hat and shoes, put his right hand in his bead bag, and continued chanting. He walked out of the apartment, down the stairs, and through the courtyard, which was now frozen and still. Its street darkly bare without a single leaf remaining, and he left the storefront behind. He left even while Brahmananda, Rupanaga, and Satsurupa were at their office jobs. There was not even a farewell scene or a farewell address. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Because that is where we finish volume 2 of Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita.
You are nicely told, and you're so expert now. You're following the footsteps of Rameswar Prabhu now.
Hare Krishna.
No, she's doing much better than me, bro.
Well, Mahajanena Gatasta Panta. Good.
So
No,
nice.
she's well trained now.
Yeah, this incident is very important, It's that's what I said. The devotees compared leaving 26 Second Avenue is compared to Krishna leaving Vrindavan with Akrura.
Oh.
The day has come, we have to renounce everything. Krishna leaving Vrindavan, all gopis and even Srimati Radharan, he is leaving everyone and going when the time comes. This is the epitome of renunciation. And Prabhupada is doing his 26 Second Avenue is life and soul, because he started from Tompkins Square, and then every nook and corner Prabhupada arranged so nicely. Even the blackboard outside the Bachelor's gift storefront, he used to write every day the day's program, what will happen in the morning, what will happen in that much. He was doing all activities, cleaning Swayam, cooking for the devotees, conducting, I think 3 wedding ceremonies there. So much happened there. And then he's walking. That's all. Even you don't want to inform Bhavananda Prabhu who is in the office. He's just walking. That's the again epitome of
Renunciation and detachment.
Yeah, we are attached to everything. Even one day, one small thing we are attached to. See the stalwarts, devotees, and
just leave and go.
Yeah, just leave and go. When the time comes, nothing looking back.
विवेक को आपको कुछ पूछना है?
Yes, na Kamala Magi. When time comes.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु. नहीं प्रभु, कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है.
कितने बढ़िया बताया ना माता जी ने.
एकदम
top of the line.
Perfect example of detachment in work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ramesh Prabhu concluded nicely. The touch of renunciation. You should not have any attachment at all, no worry at all. Because why renunciation? Because they got so much atut Vishwas on Krishna. Rakshishenti Vishwaso. They see Krishna's hand. Either this side or that side, always attached to Krishna. But it is easy to tell, Prabhu, when the real time comes, you don't want to leave. Bolna aasan hai.
And sometimes also, no, when we leave so much behind, we think of that what will happen to them, like will they progress or not. That thing also can happen. But he left just like that. Believe on
Prabhu,
Krishna.
when Sridhar Swami, you know that story, no? Sridhar Swami.
Tell me, Prabhu.
Sridhar Swami was young brahmachari, young Gragastha, married, and Mataji left the body when the child was so young. I think it's just after the delivery, the mother died. And
like
Sridhar
your wife
Swami,
also, no?
No, my daughter was 8 years old. But
Still,
this one, okay. This Sridhar Swami's child was
delivered and gone. Bacha ho gaya, chala gaya.
Yeah, that's all. And you don't know what to do. He was trying to look after the child, and then when he was sitting and chanting, he saw a lizard egg fell from the roof. It was a thatched house, fell from and it broke, and a small lizard came out, and it started walking, and it saw a small ant going. It took the prey and started eating. So who put all this knowledge into this egg and into that small lizard? So Lord is taking care. Krishna giving all of it. So if that lizard is given shelter by Krishna, why my child will not be there? So he took immediately the child, went to the Vishnu temple and covered it in a blanket and put it there. And he was hiding behind one pillar. Brahmana couples were praying to the Lord that they didn't get child for a long time, and they opened it. They saw the child. Oh Krishna, how merciful you are! Can I take this as your gift? And they took it. And Sridhar Swami left for sannyas. That's all.
Hari bol. Such a wonderful, heart-touching story. It's a real story. The real thing happened, no?
Prabhu, Sridhar Acharya, Prabhupada always quoting, no, Sridhar Acharya.
Sridhar Swami.
Sridhar Swami. This is Sridhar Swami's story.
So how he is not attached at all? बच्चे को छोड़ के चला गया मंदिर में.
That's all.
And that example is terrific. Lizard falling and the small lizard.
Yeah. That is true now. Even we have seen many times. We saw that the lizard, the egg fell down, egg broken, small lizard came out, walking few steps, he found a small ant, he put in his mouth that eating. Okay. So that's all. Protection is there everywhere. Then why should I worry? My daughter, my child also will be taken care by Krishna.
Super. And in front of his eyes, they took it. The couple came and took the child.
Yeah.
What more?
Yes. What more? This some Maharaj told me in one of the class, I remember.
Great, Prabhu. Great. Every day, give something, and that 10 minutes I wait to listen. Really, Prabhu. It's really hard touching.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Every time you tell 10 minutes in the end something, that is very, very nectarian. The video give me that recording give me, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, I'll give Prabhu.
But this becomes my good material for any lecture, no? I'll say this is what Rameswar was telling, like the 10 minutes.
Oh, Krishna, Prabhu, I am just once somebody asked Sachinandan Swami Maharaj, have you seen God? Some reporter out. Prabhupada, Maharaj said, I have not seen Krishna, but I am seeing Krishna's hand in all my life happenings. I can see his hand.
Super.
Yes, yeah, that's what we have to see Krishna's hand in all our happening. Whether we are in misery, whether we are in happy, whatever situation,
God
this
is
is
in
Krishna's.
control, in full
This is
control.
Krishna's.
Krishna.
Yeah.
But normally people won't see that. Why he
Yes,
did like
Prabhuji.
this? Why he did like that? Andha hai kya nahi? God kya pagal hai kya nahi? God does everything very fair and he'll never make mistake. Impartial.
Yes. Yes, Prabhuji.
But Prabhu, he has got little extra affection for devotees, no? Thoda extra hai uska.
Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you,
I'm
Prabhu.
right.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
going for a program, Prabhu.
Sure. Oh, now program.
Yeah, it's
Hare Krishna.
there is a Ramayan program. They invited me. The
Jai.
husband is in different group and Mataji is in our congregation. So they are conducting this Ramayan program. This Ekada they are conducting every day Ramayan in this month.
Jai.
Ramayan month in Kerala.
Very good.
So you come, but please speak about Krishna conscious. Every year
Super,
I
Prabhu.
do that. Some devotees
Super.
will turn to Krishna someday.
Jai, Prabhu. Jai. Give something
So I'm
nectarian.
going.
Prabhu, tomorrow
Yes,
I'll give the class of fourth canto.
Fourth canto, second chapter, first verse.
Second chapter, first verse. Yes. Okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Dana Pranam. Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hey,
Dana
Anil Prabhu
Pranam.
did not speak anything today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna. I was listening to all the nectars.
Yes.
So, it was really
भैया
wonderful.
कल आके आशीर्वाद आप आते नहीं मेरे इसमें आप कल आइए प्लीज आई वांट टू ब्लेस यू कल आपको आना पड़ेगा नो संडे कल आना पड़ेगा आपको
Prabhu, tomorrow.
Blessings there.
No, tomorrow our evening physical program, but I will log in my mobile. It's not my
log
class.
in. Yes,
Definitely I will log in. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Radhe Radhe भैया. आपको टाटा का भेजा सबको वांछा कर गौरंगा नित्यानंदा गौरंगा जय जय श्री राधे श्याम. Prabhu, I send you the tatas. Just go through that whenever you get time.
Yes, Prabhu.
Radhe Radhe.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.